Recording in progress.
Right. Hello, everyone. We are going to start with the first live session of Advanced Performance Management, and my name is Ira Anis. I will conduct this session on for September 2023. Let me introduce a little bit about myself. I've been teaching this APM paper since 2007 when it started first time. First time this P series has started. I've been teaching APM since that time, and there has a lot of things have been changed in the way examiner used to ask the question. So this is just a brief introduction, and I will start with the session with today's session, right? So whenever we start with APM, or whenever a student start with APM, the first thing which comes to our mind is what is actually advanced performance management, right? And the second thing is that how different it is from F5. I mean, the first thing is what is actually advanced performance management, and the second thing is how different is this from F5? Because this question is important because students who are here to attempt APM are actually those who remember their PM or F5 paper. I mean, 20 to 30% they remember. So they are quite scared that whether they will be able to cope up with APM. So it's actually relevant with that perspective. And the third thing is that how it is different from the other papers, right? Because you will see few topics which are common in the previous paper, and also which are also examined, which will also be the part of APM syllabus. So we'll discuss these three things first in the starting, and then we will proceed to the syllabus part. I'm not making it to the presentation mode because, oh, sorry. Sorry. I'm not making it to the presentation mode because writing in that mode is quite difficult for me. So I'm continuing with this with the way it is, right? So the first thing that comes to the mind to our mind is what is actually APM paper. See, advanced performance management is actually, I believe that it's a mindset. It's a change in mindset. It's a shift in mindset, because whenever you attempt APM paper, um you have to think very differently compared with what you have done in your F5 paper, right? For example, let me start it in this way, that whenever you are attempting APM paper, you have to you have to go for the complete picture. Now, what do you mean by this complete picture part? Let me just check if there's another participant, I think. Yeah. Okay. So whenever someone says that, okay, fine, what do you mean by complete picture? This means that uh, if you are attempting any scenario, if you are attempting any question, any scenario, then you have to think all those things which are given in the scenario, plus some extra things, right? Let me give you a very simple example of that. For example, in F5, what students have done is, let's suppose there is a calculation of activity-based costing, right? Let's suppose that there is a calculation of activity-based costing. So what in F5, what students were supposed to do, they were supposed to calculate cost per unit under activity-based costing system. And in the second part, probably they are required to comment on something like, for example, whether how activity-based costing will be helpful for the company. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? There is a specific part. But in this case, in APM or in P5 paper, what the requirement is to analyze whether the company should adopt activity-based costing or not, something like that. And then you have to analyze the situation in such a manner that you need to pick few points from the scenario. Points in the sense, for example, you identify that, okay, fine, there is one point which is in favor of ABC, there is another point which is in favor of activity based costing, and you got approximately 4 points which are in favor of activity based costing, right? So you identified and you wrote those points. But in APM paper, examiner tend to give you some extra points which you should smartly pick. For example, if examiner is saying that the management or the employees or the management is actually unaware of activity based costing, this is the first time they are trying to pursue for ABC. So in that case, you have to tell the demerits of activity-based costing too. That, for example, it's a costly exercise, and or probably we need to train our worker in order to get full benefit. Or, for example, since a lot of information is required in, to properly distribute overhead, so uh, is company capturing all those information? Because if company is unable to capture all those information, then definitely company will not be able to apply ABC properly, right? So you have to balance your answer, and that's very important in APM paper. This is something which we have not seen in F5. In F5 there is a very simple, if you attempt F5, you will find approximately 95% of the things are given in the scenario, and we pick those things and write it in our answer. The relevance part that we need, that examiner is usually checking whether students can pick those points from the question, right? But in APM, there are few points which will not be given in the scenario, and you have to pick those points. For example, let me give you another situation, and then you will understand what is the difference between F5 and P5 or PM or APM, and what is the mindset of APM. So let me give you another example. For example, examiner has asked you that, let's take an example of transfer pricing, right? So if you take the example of transfer pricing, for example, there is a question where examiner is asking you whether company should follow selling price as a transfer price policy. or whether the company should go with cost price as with cost as a transfer pricing policy. You have to compare between, you have to make a comparison, right? So here what you have to do, you have to see, you have to identify whether the division is a profit center or a cost center. If the division is a profit center, then definitely selling price is a good idea because you have to generate certain profit. And if the division is a cost center, then you have to then cost is a good idea to make a transfer pricing policy based on cost, right? So there are few students who will say that, okay, fine, since the company is since the division is a cost center, therefore it's advisable for division A or division B to use cost as a transfer pricing policy. That's it, right? But this is not the complete picture, right? You have to tell, you present it in uncooked meal, half baked cake sort of thing. For example, in that case, you have to identify, you have to go further one step further means what? uh, you have, there are two things, huh? For example, there is one thing which we call standard cost, there is another thing which we call the actual cost. So you may tell the examiner, you may tell the management that that if the company is using cost as a, in the second paragraph, that the company is using cost as a price transfer pricing model. So there are two options which it can charge: the standard cost and the actual cost, right? And then you have to move forward for some to for this, for some guidance purposes, that look, if you follow the standard costing, if you charge a standard, if you charge, let's suppose, the actual cost, that means the division will be able to cover all the costs which it is incurring, but there will be no motivation to save costs because whatever you are spending can be charged from the other division. So there will be, managers will not be motivated to save the cost because they knew that they can recover their costs. But if you charge, but if the transfer pricing is based on a standard cost, then there will be a motivation for the management to keep their cost within certain limit. Because if the actual cost exceed the standard cost, then they have to bear the extra cost. They have to bear the variances, right? So you have to move one step further. That, okay, fine. If we are talking about cost, then these two options are available. Or for example, if we are talking about cost, then we have to charge variable cost and fixed cost both, because this division is unable to recover cost from any other source, right? So that's basically the mindset of APM. You have to identify the extra issues which are relevant for the scenario. And here I would recommend one thing, that if you are someone who has been, working in as a management, as someone in the management position from 5 to 6 years, from past 5 to 6 years, or maybe 3 to 4 years, then probably you will be able to identify these points very easily. But if you are someone who is not aware of managerial position, who is not in the on the management position, then in that case, I will advise you guys to cover that deficiency by reading book. Because when you read book, you will identify some extra points which may help you to write your answer, right? So this is basically the difference between APM and PM paper. In APM, you have to go for a bigger picture, right? In F5 or in PM, the scope was quite limited. F5 was mainly in F5, whenever you do any F5 paper, F5 question, mostly questions were, there is a proportion of 60 is to 40, 60% theory, 40% calculation, or maybe 40% calculation, 60% theory, something like that. But in F5, but in APM paper, it's almost 95% theory, and there's very little portion, there's very little room for calculation, because at the strategic level, mostly calculations are not done. Calculations are done by someone else. If I'm there to advise someone, then probably I will deal with the theoretical part, with the conceptual part, right? So I'm not saying that calculation is not the part of APM, but the scope is quite limited. Scope is not quite wide, right? And the last thing is how it is different from the other papers. The main difference is that if in case, let's suppose, let's take the example of let's take the example of Houston consultant growth metrics, or let's say take the example of BCG growth model. Whenever you apply BCG growth model in previous paper, the way of asking question is different. But if you are following Boost and consultant growth metrics here, maybe examiner will ask you with respect to performance measurement, or with respect to key performance indicator, or maybe with respect to some any other issue, right? Or for example, if you are dealing with value chain analysis, right? So if you are dealing with value chain analysis, the way of asking question will be different. There will be different type of issues which will be given in the question, and you have to deal with them with with a very different mindset, maybe in terms of KPI, maybe in terms of quality, maybe in terms of cost saving, maybe in any other term. So that's basically important. And to be very honest, this is something which is quite scary, because whenever students see such concepts which he or she has already covered in previous paper, what they think is that uh, they think that this is basically this is quite easy part for them. They think that this is an easy part, and they attempt it like they attempted it before, and unfortunately they are unable to get the marks. Because see, the concept is very simple. ACCA, why ACCA will be interested to examine same topic two different times, right? There is no sense in it. So if you are seeing BCG or value chain analysis or SWOT analysis or pest analysis in APM paper, the requirement is quite different. And if you do not unlearn and relearn this part, probably you will not be able to secure secure the examination marks, right? So this is very important, to unlearn what you have, how you have dealt with these issues in previous papers, and try to relearn and try to learn how to attempt similar topics in APM paper, right? So this is something which is actually the basic introduction of APM paper. Now, let's move ahead. Let's move to the syllabus part. Syllabus is quite simple. Activity-based management is the first topic, which from where I usually start. I'm not going section by section. I'm going by topic, because this is something which I believe it's easier to communicate. So activity-based management, we have studied activity-based costing in F5 or in performance management paper. But in P5 or in APM, activity-based costing is there, along with activity-based budgeting and activity-based management. So there are two different concepts. And if examiner asks you activity-based costing, is still the way of asking question will be very different. We will see it in our regular sessions, how examiner is now asking the question, what kind of strategic issues examiner is actually connecting with activity-based costing or activity-based management system. Target costing is something which is not I would say it's a very I mean it's not a highly important topic. Examiner may ask this topic from you. Its frequency is not high. I mean, till now I think it has been examined 2 times or maybe 3 times in the whole P5 paper. So the frequency is quite low. So I believe that it's important for you to know what is target costing. It's important for you to read this part, but I would say that its probability of appearing in the examination paper is quite low. But still, it's relevant, because examiner may ask this with Kaizen costing, or maybe with some other concepts, right? So in risk and uncertainty, this is also something which is common with F5. You have seen this in F5. In F5, it's more calculation type. In APM, it's not that much calculative. It will be a part of the whole proposal, a bigger proposal, and in a proposal with along with all other topics, this will be the part which examiner may ask with respect to within 6 to 8 marks, or maybe 6 to 10 marks, to do some expected value and max and max and maximum type of calculation. So the scope, the way we this has been examined in F5, in APM, is different from what you have done in P5 in F5. F5, if there's a 20 marks question, probably 12 marks are dedicated to calculation and 8 marks are dedicated to theory. But this is not something which you will see in APM paper. Combined probability, this has been examined, I think, only once in PM and APM paper. So I believe a very, less important topic. So I believe these three topics, not all these three topics, I mean, these topics are actually, I recommend students to start with, because these topics are similar to PM paper and will provide kind of warm up for students. It will be easier for student to adjust in APM paper. And once you are done with this, then then I start with performance measurement. Performance measurement is obviously something which is really very important. Without performance measurement, you cannot pass APM paper, right? So performance measurement, what we have done in F5 was balance a scorecard, right? We have done, I think, a building block model. So these two concepts are there along with performance pyramid. So these boost and consult, balance scorecard, building block model, performance pyramid, these three theories are here. But the way of asking question is very different. Usually examiner asks performance measurement in section A. And section A is, as you all know, section A is of 50 marks. And in 50 marks, examiner try to add few other topics. For example, quality with respect to performance, quality and its connection with performance management, maybe stakeholder, its connection with performance management, performance measurement, sorry. Maybe transfer pricing, its impact on performance measurement, or maybe, for example, inventory management and its connection with performance measurement, cost saving, its connection with performance management. So this is basically the dynamic. This is basically the way how examiner try to deal with the performance measurement part. So it's a huge topic, and we will spend around 40 to 50% time of our questions in dealing with performance measurement. And while dealing with performance measurement, we will also cover a few other topics, right? Then, sorry, it has been replicated. Quality control. Quality is really very important here. Quality has not been examined in F5 to the extent. I mean, TQM concept was there, total quality management was there. But now, again, the way of asking question is different in quality. Responsibility center is same what we have studied in F5, but here you will find one more concept which is called economic value added, which is actually should be the part of value-based management, right? So economic value added is something which has been economic value added. This is a new topic which is the part of APM, and I think it's really very important, because now the companies are also showing it as a performance indicator in their accounting statement, in their financial reporting, right? All right. And then transfer pricing. Transfer pricing is same as we did in past, but initially what we did in F5 was to identify a transfer pricing, yeah, what should be the relevant transfer price. In APM paper, it's not what should be the relevant to calculate the transfer price for division A. It's not the case. In APM paper, usually the situation is you have to comment. As I said earlier, you have to comment on the situation that, look, this is the situation. And now you have to analyze whether the transfer price, which has suppose opportunity cost based transfer price or market based transfer price or cost based transfer price will be relevant or not, right? And if you are saying whether that should be relevant or not, you have to come with the positive sides and the negative sides, why in favor or against both sides, right? So this part is quite different from what we have studied in F5. In F5, the examiner never asks transfer pricing like this, right? Along with that, theory part is theory part is there. I mean, theoretically, it's quite huge. Plus, along with that, there is one more thing which is the part of transfer pricing, which is the taxation issue. Taxation is usually asked in a situation, for example, if let me give you an example that one division is in country A. Division A is in country A and division B is in country B. So if these two divisions will trade with each other, then what will be the implication of taxation? For example, for example, if country B has low taxation rate and country A has high taxation rate, then probably we will try to park our profits in a country where taxation rate is low. So such kind of decision making is actually the part of APM paper, which was not in P5. Performance measurement in not-for-profit making organization. This is something which is important and which has not been asked in a way it should have been asked in F5. Now, performance, there are quite complex issues in performance measurement in not-for-profit making organizations. For example, take the example of a police force, or take the example of a charity hospital, or take the example of any ambulance services. There are very different type of complications in the scenario. So that complications were not examined in F5 paper, which is actually the part of APM paper. So this is completely new. And I think I have covered 2 to 3 questions of not performance measurement in not-for-profit making organization in my lecture. And this is a frequently asked topic in APM. Then there is a Toyota production system, lean manufacturing system, and lean manufacturing system is there. The concept of lean manufacturing system, Six Sigma concept. So these 2 or 3 concepts which are new are actually the part of APM paper. So we'll discuss it later when we start our regular course. Information technology system, IT has not been, IT was a very small portion of F5 paper. Now its intensity is high because we all know that how IT is actually moving, how technology is moving, right? So IT merge with different sections. For example, the role of integrated accounting system with respect to inventory management, the role of integrated system with courier service, the role of integrated system with any other industry. The examiner will give you a scenario, a problem, and examiner will ask you what kind of solution with respect to IT can provide in the scenario. And obviously you have to answer that question according to the IT with respect to technology perspective, right? BPR, this is a quite recurring process. Frequency is quite high of business process reengineering. BPR is usually asked in section B, not in section A, but obviously if it comes in section A, it will come as a 10 to 15 marks requirement. Pricing, I believe that pricing is a similar topic as we discussed in as a target costing, that its frequency is very low. I mean, the concept of marginal revenue is equals to marginal cost is something which you should know, which should be in your mind. This has been examined when P5 at the initial stages of P5. I think before 2010, and it has been asked only once in F5 in APM paper. So I don't believe pricing is an important topic, but it's still relevant. You should know, something should be in your mind whenever you are going in the examination hall. Budgeting is definitely an issue considering the uncertain environment in the economy, the value, what you can say, the issues which we are feeling, which we are facing. I'm not getting the correct word of it. Um, Supply chain. So supply chain issues are actually quite complicated these days. So with respect to supply chain issues, how budgeting, how you are going to deal with budgeting. So budgeting is, I think, is an important part, and the kind of budgeting we have in APM is completely different from what you have studied in previous papers, because it's more conceptual rather than, it's more in terms of advice. Like for example, this is the situation and you are supposed to advise the management how to deal with the budgeting issues, whether the company should go for incremental based approach or a rolling budget based approach. So if you are going for a rolling based budget approach, you have to tell the what are the points which are in favor, what are the points in against. So again, budgeting is a completely theoretical. One extra topic is here, which is called beyond budgeting, which has not been covered previously. So that is here. Let me try to write here. That is beyond budgeting. Beyond budgeting is here. Zero based budgeting is here. Incremental budgeting. You should know what is incremental budgeting. And along with that, rolling budgets are here. Activity based budgeting is here. So there are few topics, but there are, I think, how many, 4 or 5 topics, subtopics in budgeting. So it's an important topic. Environmental management accounting is again, frequency of EMA is high in APM paper, because the kind of situation which we are facing these days, this topic is quite relevant. How you are trying to manage your environmental related cost, how you will deal with that, right? So EMA, again, EMA is a topic which is common with F5 and P5, which is, common in both papers, but the way examiner is asking in APM is quite intense. The intensity is quite high. So I recommend you to read the EMA article, which has been written by examiner, and read the book. I will give you a few case studies to read. I will try to explain it and give you its material. So it's really very important to read those things, because those are quite relevant with the current scenario. Human resource management is a theoretical topic. Again, the part of APM. It comes along with some. It's a complementary topic. I mean, it will come with some question, not complete question of HRM you can expect in APM. It's difficult for you to get a complete 50-mark question of HRM. It can be examined in 20 marks in section B, but not in section A. Value-based management, this is actually in line with economic value added. If you cover EVA, you can cover value-based management, because it's quite, because EVA comes under VBM, right? Performance prism is new. Integrated reporting is a new concept. These two concepts are completely new, not the part of your API, not the part of your P5, F5 paper. And along with all these major topics, there are few topics which I called miscellaneous topics. I will provide you its recording, but if I list those topics down, so it will be again 2 to 3 more slides of that. So I just call them miscellaneous topics. So that is again another portion of APM paper. Now, examination format, you guys know that examination format is very simple. 50 marks, 50 marks, section A of 50 marks, which is 40 technical marks and 10 professional marks. And all professional skills will be examined in section A: communication, analysis and evaluation, skepticism, and commercial acumen. All will be the part of section A. Section B is of 20 technical marks and 5 professional marks. So it's a very simple thing, right? And I think you guys, if you are in APM paper, you guys know what is communication, analysis and evaluation, skepticism, and commercial professional acumen. I believe communication is not new. Communication is something which was already the part of APM. I mean, in section A, communication is usually examined in section A. So in section A, you write a report, right? You start with the introduction, to, from, date, subject, introduction. and then the main body part, A requirement, you put a heading and then subheading, bullet points, um, uh, addressing all the key requirements, try to complete all those requirements which are asked in the paper. So that was a part of APM, even before this 20 marks professional to 20 professional marks. This was the part of 4 professional marks. So communication was there. Communication is not new. Evaluation analysis. Evaluation is something, if you start, if you pick APM paper from 2013 onwards, not 13 before, because as I said that 2000 P5 paper there has been a dramatic change in the way of asking questions from 2007 till 2023. If you see 2007 or 2008 or 2009 paper, the way of asking question was completely different, right? Because that was a transition phase, right? So if you pick any paper from 2012, 2013 onwards, you will see, evaluate the scenario, evaluate the performance, evaluate the performance report. You will always, I mean, I don't think that there is a single paper without this evaluate examination verb. So that was also present in initial papers. Even in analysis part, analysis is actually means how you are dealing with. Analysis actually means to analyze the situation according to the company. I mean to deal with the topic according to the given scenario and its positive things, its negative things. So this is something which was already the part of APM paper. So first two professional skills were there in APM paper. Skepticism and professional acumen, these two professional skills has been added, right? So if you see any paper, even professional acumen is also something which was present in APM paper before, because if examiner is asking you, see why this has been introduced in APM paper, because students sometimes give very absurd kind of suggestions to the examiner. I was reading a report, examiner report, and there was in I don't remember exactly in which report it was there, but examiner was actually complaining that there was a student who gave an idea that the company should change the factory layout just to adopt activity based costing. I mean, there is no sense in recommending such things, because obviously practically it's impossible. So you have to give a solution which is practically possible considering the scenario, right? Considering the limitations of the company, right? So that's why this is something which is reasonable. Now you are getting marks, extra marks for that, but this is something which was already present in the APM paper. Skepticism is, I believe, if you see the past paper, if you analyze the past paper before September, um, now examiner is giving you some clues to cover this skepticism part. You have to analyze the situation, you have to go for approach to ask the question, or for example, if something is missing, then you have to ask the scenario, you have to write in the answer that, look, this is also an important area which is missing in the question, so we need this information in order to complete the analysis, right? Or for example, if there is some sudden change in the process, then you may ask the question why the company is doing this, or if there is any, if there is any if there is any ethical issue or something like that too. But this is something which now examiner is embedded in its scenario, right? I mean before September 2022, this thing was not the part of paper. If you write the answer, probably as compared with the first, second, and fourth professional skill, this was less answered. But now examiner is giving you uh, some points to go with the skepticism point, right? But again, you have to be very careful. Don't raise question on each and every thing which is given in the question. That's not a good idea. So I'm just skipping these four things because I have already covered it here. Uh, in APM paper, there is one more thing which is called embedded requirements. Embedded requirements is what, if you see the current paper, examiner will ask you to perform the task given by the CEO. I mean, if you find a requirement is like analyze the situation according to the CEO requirement. So we are not getting anything in the required part, that what is required by the CEO. For the requirement of CEO, you have to move towards the question. So this thing I think has been introduced after 2020, I guess. I'm not sure about it. So this is something which is really very important, and I think this is something where students are missing their answer. For example, while reading the whole scenario, sometimes students miss the requirement of CEO. What CEO actually wants? CEO wants a brief introduction of the concept of BPR and wants you to analyze the situation according to the BPR, right? Business process reengineering. So sometimes students forget to write the introduction of BPR and then they start with the evaluation part. So that's basically something which the students are still missing in their answer. Now, most frequently used APM exam verb. Why I have introduced this part, this slide in current lecture, because this is important. If you are starting APM paper, you must know that these things you will find in almost 80% questions. You will find these examination verb, right? Evaluate is a really very important scenario, is an important verb. uh, Mostly questions ask you to evaluate the scenario. Evaluate means whatever is positive you have to write it, you have to identify and write. If something is negative, you have to identify and write it. Let me give you an example. For example, the company is measuring its growth by seeing the market share, right? So market share, you have to, if you are criticizing that the company's growth should not be measured by market share, then you have to tell the reason to the examiner why you think that this is incorrect and why something else will be more appropriate, right? For example, if I'm saying that market share is something which is incorrect, which is not appropriate, because it will tell the company what market share it has. For example, if company has 10% market share, it will not give you an idea where the company is standing. There are chances that there can be another company which has a 20% market share. So in that case, you are quite behind. You are far behind the other company, your competitor. But there may be a case that your next biggest competitor is having 9% or 8% market share. In that case, you are ahead of your competitor. So relative market share is important. So you have to tell the examiner that why you think that this is important, and why you think that this is this market share has some issues, and relative market share should be important, should be used, right? So you have to tell examiner the whole picture, right? We will discuss evaluate in our regular classes, because this is something which you can understand when you start the answering the question, right? Assessment is important. Assessment in terms of identification of strengths, weaknesses. What are the, for example, if I ask you assess whether activity based costing is relevant or not, so you have to go for why identification of which factors you think that should be, that it's relevant, and you have to identify that what are the problems that the company may suffer if it start ABC, right? Advice is really very important. Examiner sometimes asks you to advise. So first of all, you have to identify, you have to explain the whole picture, and then you have to advise based on some relevant issues, relevant points. That's, look, since considering these 4 points, it is advisable for the company to do that. Don't advise the company without having a proper justification, right? And obviously analyze the situation is again analyze the current situation, that where the company is standing, where the company may end in future. That kind of thing is part of analysis. Now, approaching the APM, how you should approach APM paper. See, the most important thing is try to cover the whole syllabus. This is important because I've seen students because see, you don't have any assignments, you don't have any other thing, you just have 3 hours and 15 minutes to express yourself. And let's suppose you didn't cover economic value added and it comes in 50 marks question. Obviously, you will not be able to pass the paper. So I believe that it's really very important to cover whole syllabus, or at least 80 to 90% of the whole syllabus. Try to complete it. Try to do as much as you can. Right. Be prepared to apply all your knowledge to the business scenario. Now, we will we will do this in our paper in our classes. Sometimes students write very generalized answer, not specific to the scenario. For example, company should do that, company should do this, and not answering what this regarding the requirement, regarding the specific problems of company. So the application is really very important. You are not supposed to write the general answer. You have to apply the answer. You have to apply whatever theory you have studied. You have to apply in that scenario, whether in favor or against that. Read the answer and question out. Now, this is something which examiner continuously complain, and examiner believe that students do not do this. Students are still struggling in this part. Read the answer and try to answer what is required. Don't write what you know, because if you are writing what you know, then you are right. You are absolutely 100% right in writing, but you haven't answered what I have asked. I am asking you what is your name. You are telling me your address. Whatever you are telling me is 100% correct, but that is not what I asked you to write, right? So in that case, student end up in getting no marks. For example, examiner has asked you to critically analyze a situation, or for example, examiner has asked you to evaluate whether the economic value added will be beneficial for the company or not. And you are just and what you are doing, you are just uh, you are not moving in the correct direction. You are not telling with specifically with respect to the scenario. You are just writing what you know. So obviously that will not end up in getting marks, right? Create information from data. As I said that in transfer pricing case, when I started the question, I said that look, there can be a situation where you end up in advising the management to opt for cost based transfer pricing policy, but you are not telling the complete picture. So that means you are not completing the picture. You are just telling the one part of the story, which is obviously not should not be the case. Or for example, if there is something is given in the question and the other part is given in the appendix, you have to connect appendix with the scenario in order to complete the answer. There are students who don't consider appendices in writing their answer. They just read the question and write accordingly. It sounds very stupid, but students do this, right? Add value to the organization which is being advised. Now, it's important. If you, for example, let me give you a basic idea. See, for example, you hired someone and you are asking from him that advise me regarding how the efficiency of employees can be improved, right? And you are telling me that you have to introduce a reward system. That's it. And you are not telling me what kind of reward system I should adopt. which factors I should consider while introducing the reward system. How much should be the reward? What will happen if the company is unable to achieve the targets? Should we charge some penalty? I mean, everything is missing here. So whatever you are advising is not adding value to my organization. It's just a simple advice. Next time, definitely I will not hire you. I will hire someone else because I know that this person is not going to give me the complete picture. So that's basically the area of APM. Then again, now this is not obviously something which should be communicated in the initial phase, in the initial lecture, but still I believe if you are starting your preparation from today, then these are something which should be kept in mind, and you should not repeat these mistakes. You should learn from the mistakes done by others, right? So the first thing is that struggling in understanding the question requirement. This is, as I said before, there is easy marks available in the question. Now, what do you mean by easy marks? See, suppose, for example, examiner is introducing something. This is, I don't know how many times I will repeat it in my regular sessions, but try to keep this thing in your mind. For example, the and student miss these marks quite often. For example, a company is starting to implement, let's suppose, balance scorecard, right? So if the company is starting balance scorecard and advising, and they are asking you to advise them whether balance scorecard should be relevant in the situation or not, since the company is starting this concept first time, you have to answer, you should start your answer by writing the basic introduction of what is the balance scorecard. Or for example, if the company is adopting total quality management first time, they are thinking whether to adopt TQM methodology or not, then you should start from the basic idea of TQM. What is the concept of TQM? This is something which we will discuss in our regular section, regular syllabus, I mean regular classes. But this is something, because examiner usually give you 1 to 2 marks for the introduction, and students miss these marks, right? Time management issue is quite obvious in APM, and that's because students don't, this, I believe this is because of 2 reasons. The first reason is that students don't practice questions a lot. So when they are in examination scenario, it gets difficult for them to recall what they have studied, right? And the second thing which I believe is that they write too much. They write excessive. So don't write excessive answer, and try to write, try to practice as many questions as you can before the paper, because it will be easier for you to recall in your examination if you have already written a topic 2 to 3 times before, right? It sounds very odd, but it's the reality. Don't know how to get professional marks. Unfortunately, still this is the problem in APM. Don't consider marking a scheme. This is something which I repeatedly say to students, that please do consider uh, the marking scheme. Why? Because see, uh, consider a scenario, right? You are working in an organization, and management, someone from management came and they said that, look, the management will give you some reward, and you are so stupid that you didn't ask the management on what grounds I will get the reward, and you started working hard, and by the end of the year you worked so hard, but still you were unable to get the reward, you were unable to get the bonus. Why? Because you don't have any idea on what basis, what are the factors on which bonus is based on. Similarly, your marks are exactly your bonus. You should know what to write and what not to write whenever you are writing something. because your whatever you are writing, that will earn the marks. So that's why I believe that considering marking scheme is really very important, that how examiner is giving you marks. In case of unsuccessful attempt, they don't know where they went wrong in the paper. This is uh, I don't know, 90% of the students don't know where they went wrong. They come to me and they say that map paper went fine, but I couldn't clear the paper. And when I asked what actually went wrong, they said, I don't know. I mean, I did completely right. I did everything correct, but I don't know where the problem is. It's scary because if you don't know where the problem is, how you will correct it? So this is actually the problem, and that can be sorted out by you by reading the examiner report. Because in examiner report, examiner usually tell the student what actually went wrong with the students who attempted this question. So try not to repeat that. Um, how you should improve it, or for those who are starting APM paper, how you should prepare yourself for APM paper. Read the requirements, all issues. This we will practice this in our paper, and justify your recommendation, justify your answer. Justification is something which is which is which is very extremely important. Why? Because you are, someone asks for your advice, you are advising him or her, and you are not telling him the reason for your conclusion. For example, if I'm saying that, look, uh, for example, if I'm saying that, look, you should not follow profit based reward system. The obvious question is why? Why should not I follow profit based performance system, reward system? Why? If you are not telling the reason why they should not do that, examiner will not give you marks. Trust me. Uh, you will end up in getting very few marks. I mean, maybe 10% or maybe 15% marks, not more than that, without justification. Then consider marks while planning the answer. It's simple thing since you are in APM. So I believe this is something which you should be easy to do. I mean, it will be easier for you to do that. Focus on professional marks. This is important. Practice as many as questions as you can. Now try to keep two things in your mind when you practice the paper, practice the question. First thing, write your answer. Write your answer as you are writing in the paper. Because I have seen students who practice it like this. For example, they read a question, they wrote the bullet points that okay fine, we will cover this point, these 4 points we will cover. They see the answer and they say, huh, okay fine, yeah, we covered these 4 points, done. They do not write the answer. So when they go to the examination, if and it's extremely important if English is your secondary language. If English is your primary language, then probably the problem is not serious. You may tackle the issue, but still you should write it just to uh, know the topic well, application of the topic, for the sake of application of topic. And the second problem is that they don't consider time while writing the answer. Time in the sense, for example, if you are practicing 50 marks question, then you should attempt it within 1.5 hours. You should keep in your mind that you have to finish this question by maximum 1.5 hours or 1 hour and 40 minutes, not more than that. Because if you are taking 2 hours to attempt one question of 50 marks, then definitely you are not excelling in that. So I usually advise students to start with 25, start attempting 25 marks question and then move to 50 marks, right? I mean, while practicing the question. Read the examiner comments, it's really very important. We will cover this in our regular classes. Now, way forward is what we will I will, if you enroll in this lecture, I will provide you with the recorded lectures, right? To prepare as per your convenience, because if you're working, obviously it will be difficult for you to take the classes. We will have few live classes to deal with the exam related issues, the how you will deal with the information, or in case you have any issues, you can WhatsApp me and I will deal with those issues. Then there will be a mock paper and debriefing sessions. Now, how I will, this is basically the schedule, live lecture schedule. Today I have conducted the first class, right? This is done. The next session will be on 26th. So there will be five live lectures. And then after fifth live lecture, I will provide you a mock paper, which you have to attempt. And then I will provide you with debriefing video for that mock paper so that you can understand what you have written and you have understand and you can identify issues. Alternatively, what you can do is whatever you have written, try to send me your copies, scanned version of your answer script, and I will mark them and I will return it to you. Right. So this is basically the end of the first live lecture of APM. I hope you got the idea of basic introduction of APM. Hopefully we will hopefully we will connect in our regular sessions. So we will start with the first live lecture and the second live lecture on on say 26th. Till then you can start your preparation by the recorded lecture and books, right? Till then, take care. Allah Hafiz.